Let's now go to the next part, which is autosomal linkage. And what autosomal linkage is that we have to consider the chromosomes as the 23 pairs that we have. However, only 22 of those are what we call autosomes or autosomal chromosomes. And the final pair are sex chromosomes. So the autosomal chromosomes determine all the traits of an organism apart from any sex-associated traits. So the X and Y chromosomes don't only determine the sex of the offspring, but they also carry genes that are required for what we call secondary sexual characteristics, such as development of mammary glands and various hormones that are required. When I have two genes that are located on the same chromosome, I call them linked. So for instance, here we have a pair of homologous chromosomes, and they carry 3 genes on them: gene 1, gene 2, gene 3. So I say that these genes are linked. This is what linkage is. And we can have autosomal linkage or we can have sex linkage, and we're going to consider those two cases separately. So what happens to the gamete combinations? What happens to the possible linkage? What happens to the possible, gamete ratios, or the different types of gametes that we can have, and by extension, the phenotypic ratios when genes are linked? Let's consider this example. So we have an individual. Let's just take two, imaginary genes. Doesn't matter what they are. It just matters that there are 2 alleles and that one is dominant over the other, right? So we have an individual here that is heterozygous for these 2 traits, right? So let's write out, and as we said, so this is when the genes are unlinked, right? So this is basically the stuff that we already learned happens in the dihybrid inheritance. So on one set of chromosomes, let's say, for example, this is chromosome 1, right? Maternal, paternal, homologous chromosomes. So one chromosome contains the allele capital A, and the other chromosome, because they're homologous chromosomes, they're not genetically identical, they're inherited from different parents, so they have different alleles, and this chromosome has lowercase a. On a totally other chromosome, let's say it's chromosome 5, we have, on a different position, we have a different allele, that codes for, let me just do this in a different color so that it's a bit more obvious for you guys. So here we have the other allele, and this person is also heterozygous for this allele, right? So what are now the possible gametes of this individual? So as we said before, when we were doing the Punnett squares, they can have this allele here, which has, again, let me change colors. They can get this chromosome, which has allele A, and then they can get this chromosome here, which has allele B. So this gamete is going to be AB. I'm not going to draw arrows and everything because otherwise the diagram is going to get really messy. They can get this that's why they've got like the red and pink coloring here. So they can get this chromosome, which has this allele, and this chromosome, which has the capital B allele. So now this gamete is going to be like that. They can get the upper A, lower B, right? Or they can get lower A, lower B, and the gamete will be like that. Okay, what happens though if these genes are linked? And what do we mean we said by linked? That they are found on the same chromosome. So this individual has both. So let's say this is the same chromosome, I don't know, 2 or whatever. So both genes are found on the same chromosome. That can happen, right? Each chromosome of ours has several thousand genes. It may happen that, oh, I want to investigate the inheritance of those two traits, but they happen to be on the same chromosome. It just means that my study of the inheritance is going to look different. So let's say that this individual is also heterozygous. So they've got one allele like that, one allele like that. But the other one, instead of being on a separate chromosome, is on the same chromosome here. So therefore, what are their possible gametes? So let's say that these chromosomes are found in a diploid cell, right? And then this diploid cell divides by meiosis. It creates the 4 haploid gametes. But there's only, like, these two alleles basically can only ever be inherited together as a unit because they physically reside on the same chromosome. So there we go. This is the only possible gametes that this person can make. One gamete, homologous chromosomes, remember, separated in meiosis. So one gamete is going to be like this, and the other gamete is going to be like this, and that's it. So they make, so we have to calculate less gametes effectively. These are the gametes. So what then will be the expected phenotypic ratios when I do have linkage? So let's compare the two. So as we said before, when the genes were unlinked, these down here were my possible gametes. So they're basically AB, 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 AB. So basically, when they are unlinked, I've got my classic 9-3-3-1 ratios that I calculated previously with the example of the monohybrid inheritance, right? I'm not going to fill those in. 9-3-3-1. But if they are linked, then my only gametes are AB, AB, and the same for the other parent. So my possible offspring are going to be homozygous dominant for both, heterozygous dominant for both, also here heterozygous dominant for both, and homozygous recessive for both traits. What is this ratio? It's a 3-to-1 ratio. So here we don't know what these traits are, but make sure that when you're writing your answers, you write, what each one is. So if this was like, I don't know, like round and yellow like before, make sure to state which one is which in your ratios. However, in reality, when we are dealing with genes that are found, that are linked on the same chromosome, we will rarely get this exact ratio that we expect. Take a second to consider why that might be before I go to the next slide. What could be preventing me from getting this exact expected ratio? You might have guessed it. The answer is crossing over.